Hey, welcome everybody to our first Li-Fire webinar. We're going to start hosting these on a more regular basis to keep our sales staff trained up, and new product developments and kind of moving in the market, and just a general cohesive tool to keep us all together. So today we're going to go through some of the risk associated with lithium-ion batteries, and then towards the end we'll get into some of the new training program we're going to have and the salesman contest that we're going to have between now and the end of the year. So join me here as I go through this and explain some of the ins and outs. We're going to go through the fire hazards. I'm not sure this slide has the environmental impact because it didn't get taken out, but we're going to stick to the fire hazards, the safety issues, and the mitigation tools on today's presentation. A little bit about me. I started in the mining industry several years ago, and most recently I worked for a company called Natron Energy in the battery space. So we made sodium-ion batteries, and through that exposure, I was shown the world of lithium-ion battery fire and kind of had the big problem with that, and that this technology is a little bit different. So through my exposure there and the work there, it's kind of what led us to Li-Fire. Here's some of the places I spent in Africa doing some of the mining and going for the actual minerals that are in the battery. So I've kind of seen the supply chain from the dirt to the finished product, so to speak, and now I'm pretty excited about our product, and that hopefully we can save lives with it. Over the last year, we've done about 9, 10, 12 demos, something like that. We have distributors now that I think are up to 10, 12 demos. So we have a lot of real world testing with our products, with our blankets. We've gone back and forth with major fire departments, with Miami-Dade, kind of refining some of the things in the beginning, and feel like we have one of the most competitive and well-engineered products out there. We've got a video here that's going to kind of show one of our new products coming out. This is one of the early prototypes of it, but it's a charging bag. So you can put your your e-scooters, your power tools, your hoverboards, these kind of things, so that as they're charging, they're contained inside this bag. So if there is a situation where the battery goes into thermal runaway and creates a fire, it's at least going to contain it and not completely burn your house down. So you'll see this here. It happens really quick. It's only about a couple second video. The bag fills up with gas and then explodes. Moving into some of the fire hazards with lithium-ion batteries, it's actually, there's one real fire hazard that's called thermal runaway. Thermal runaway begins when the heat generated within the battery exceeds the amount of heat that's dissipated to its surroundings. There's a few different causes of that, one being manufacturing defects. The lithium coating process on the anodes during that manufacturing is kind of finicky, and if that process isn't 100% correct, that could lead to issues down the road with the battery. One of the most common issues, though, is physical damage: dropping, puncturing, road damage, saltwater intrusion. These kind of things really increase the likelihood that you're going to have an incident with your lithium-ion battery and a catastrophic fire. Some recent incidents that we're going to go through here kind of vary. They run the gamut from the first one here is a gas-powered car that caught an electric car on fire. The second one here is a Tesla that was actually on fire underwater. We move into the e-bikes. We move into the manufacturing of the batteries in a couple different places. Some car dealerships. Somebody that had an unfortunate incident with a knockoff Milwaukee or DeWalt battery. And then we kind of ended again with a Jeep explosion in a facility, or I'm sorry, in a homeowner's place out in Colorado. It's kind of like a full-size scale of what you just saw with the battery. Miami, Florida. It was a parking garage on March 8th. It began somewhere in this area with an internal combustion engine. Parked next to that was a Tesla Model 3. So that propagated into the Tesla, and once that happened, the fire department showed up. It was so consumed, they couldn't get it under control fast enough. So they ended up losing 17 cars total in this incident, and they're still trying to determine the structural integrity of the building to find out whether it's safe because of the heat that was generated from that incident. So following up with some of the fire chiefs that were involved in this situation and kind of doing a debriefing with them, they said that they wish they would have had the blankets in that situation to go in when there was only 3 cars on fire and put a barrier here and a barrier here to isolate that. So you're essentially building a wall system to kind of contain that from propagating further into other automobiles. This one is a Tesla Model X. So October 3rd, 2023, the husband was backing a jet ski down in the water, so he backed it in, got it all set. The wife was supposed to go up, drive the car out of the water. Somehow reverse and neutral were confused, and this is the result from that. So what you're seeing there is, it's going to get bigger, I guess not. So you can see that's the gull wing doors on a Model X. So it's underwater there, and the fire's coming out of the water, kind of like a witch's brew in a cauldron, right? So we talk about lithium-ion batteries. They create their own oxygen once they go into that thermal runaway. So the blanket is not going to stop this fire. You're going to suppress it, you're going to contain it, you're going to protect the structures around it, give yourself some time to come up with a plan and figure out, okay, what's our best case here? How do we go about it? So this particular department in Hollywood, Florida has our product. They pull the car out of the water after it finishes its burn, and then they wrap it in the blanket for transport, and then once they get to the tow yard, they leave that on there, so 70% of the time they reignite. So this contains all of that underneath the blanket. If you don't have that as a tow truck operator, they're requiring that you keep 50 feet perimeter all the way around the car. So that's about the equivalent space to park about 30 cars. So if you're in the recovery business and you have a Tesla there and you have to shield off that much of your lot, you're not going to be able to bill for 30 cars being stored there. So that's kind of a stopgap measure for them to still be able to pack the cars in their yard and keep from propagating all the way through the entire the yard. So 2023, e-bike fires in New York City wreaked havoc from pretty much the beginning of the year to the end. There's 268 incidents that killed 18 people, it injured 150, and then they had another 45 fires and 29 injuries and 1 death reported by March 24th of this year. So, you know, you can see that it's rapidly increasing. This scene right here was from a undercover charging facility. So a lot of these delivery drivers don't have a way to charge their bikes or their scooters or whatever it is, so they can take this into a facility like this. It's unlicensed, that had one plug-in plugged into a extension cord with a power strip plugged in and a bunch of different charging devices. So it's really, from a firefighting perspective, they're having to do a lot of investigations into this and come up with fines and, you know, rules and regulations. But if you're this guy that's running this, is not following any of them anyway. So it's a really, really tough situation. I think there was 3 people that lost their life in this fire. It was downstairs, and then it had a walk-up apartment above it. So we recently released our e-bike covers, and we think that, well, we know from the testing that we've done, had some of these been covered during that, the fire is still going to happen, but you're going to at least be able to keep your egress out of the building in time to, you know, save your life and then figure out what's happening after. This is an interesting one. You see the guy up in the top in the corner there, just kind of minding his own business, and this scooter sitting here charging. So this video altogether, I think, is about 1.5 minutes, and you're going to see kind of what happens. It kind of falls down as he's trying to put it out with a glass of water. The sparks are shooting everywhere. So our cover's designed so that you just slide it over that while it's charging. This is not for something while it's on fire, although it could be used as that if you have the proper gear to get close enough. We just recommend that you cover these things while they're charging, especially inside your house. In New York City, a lot of the problem is they only have one exit out of these buildings because it's a walk-up apartment. So when they catch on fire, it blocks all of the egress out. So this gets pretty dramatic here towards the end. So yeah, I think we're about 1 minute into this video, and it goes like 1:20. So there's not a lot of time there to react as something like that unfolds, and you're definitely not going to put it out with water. So this is the test of our e-bike cover. We'll watch this video a couple times. You can see the fire underneath the blanket there. This is a simulated garage situation with a plywood chair on one side and a piece of plywood on the other. So with the cover and without, you can kind of see this is the same time in the video. So simply by applying the cover over it, it contains the fire underneath it and prevents you from burning down your garage, your apartment, any sort of egress you have at it. But it's kind of, I'll point it out again, right about when it switches here to the cover, you can see right there is where the fire really, you can really see it glowing underneath the cover. And it just continues to kind of smolder out into there and contain it until that particular battery pack completely burned out. So we simulated e-bikes with regular bicycles, but we strapped two 20-volt batteries to them, which is a pretty standard battery system of what they would something like that would have. It's just a much cheaper way to do it because we're trying to repetitively do this and test more things. So. This is another battery plant fire that happened in Commerce, Georgia. I think this was, I can't quote who it was, I'd have to look up what it was again, but 13 workers again were exposed to respiratory conditions because of the fires that happened there with the airborne particles. So all of these manufacturing facilities are starting to transition into this blanket as a stopgap measure in some of these situations. This is at the GM facility in Detroit, Michigan. So, you know, almost every major facility has had some sort of incident with a lithium-ion battery fire. Not in this slide deck. You know, this is obviously 100 firefighters, 7 hours to put this out because it was punctured with a forklift. So it's not just an isolated incident of this product or that product. It's all the way across the chain. Yesterday, I think, or the day before, up in Illinois, the Rivian plant, there was I don't know, 15, 20, 30 of their vehicles out in the holding lot that were getting ready to be delivered to customers. One of those caught on fire, and now there's 20 or 30 of them at a total loss that are sitting there surrounded by shipping containers as an isolation measure. So it's just a rising issue that we see more and more of. This is a customer of ours in San Juan, Puerto Rico. They had an EV fire incident. That was a result of an electric car that something shorted out while technicians were working on it. And I kind of found it ironic when we're talking to the owner of the place. They said this is just the types of fires that occasionally occur with electric cars. So, you know, they came to us after they had a problem. And of course, you know, now they have our products in our blankets. But we're starting to see that trend sort of switch to preventative measures, especially with insurance companies, regulations, and those kind of things starting to catch up a little bit. This incident in Fort Lauderdale, Florida kind of goes back to the very beginning slide where we were talking about the different ways that the battery goes into thermal runaway. This vehicle ran over something on I-95 in South Florida. Owner thought it didn't feel right, took it into the Tesla dealership, left it overnight. The next morning at about 6 o'clock, while it was not charging, just sitting out in the parking lot, you know, it caught on fire. So luckily this one was kind of isolated where it was parked at, so there was nothing else around it, and it didn't, you know, snowball into a bigger situation. This one is a storage unit in Chelsea, Maine, and this guy, what ended up happening is he thought he had branded Milwaukee and DeWalt batteries, and come to find out, he bought them on Amazon and they were mislabeled, so they were actually fake. And there's really not a way to kind of know that, so you kind of keep in mind to buy these things from reputable dealers, always use the charger that came with it and those kind of things. But this video right here is going to kind of explain that whole incident.
A large manufacturing building, as well as several empty sheds and other buildings, were destroyed in a massive fire this afternoon in Chelsea. Thank you for joining us. I'm Owen Kingsley. We spoke with one neighbor who caught on camera the moment that a building at New England Rent-to-Own, a manufacturer of sheds and modular homes, exploded. Neighbors in Chelsea called 911 around 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon after this manufacturing warehouse owned by New England Rent-to-Own caught fire and exploded. Maine State Fire Marshals are now investigating. The owners of New England Rent-to-Own say fire marshals told them they suspect the cause of the fire was several lithium batteries that were charging power tools inside the building.
Absolutely devastated. Yeah. I don't think there's any other word that can sum that up. Probably just devastated.
The owners say no one was inside when the fire started and no workers were hurt. They say the building was mostly filled with construction materials and unfinished sheds and modular homes. The owner adds that about 8 other empty and recently built buildings caught fire. It's a devastating blow to this local business, who say they specialize in building affordable mobile homes. The company says more than a dozen workers' jobs are affected, and they plan to move them into their other buildings in the short term.
First of all, thank you to all the first responders with such a fast response. There's a lot of towns that participated in putting this fire out. Once they get through their initial investigation, I mean, our next focus is all of our staff and our employees, a lot of dedicated people that come to work here every single day in the week, is getting them back to work as fast as we can and rebuilding.
So, as you can see, it's spread across industries, different types of batteries, different situations. This is kind of where our containment bag that I just showed you is going to be very valuable as these guys are storing, you know, multiple power tools and different environments. You can place this soft-sided bag wherever you need it, plug everything inside it, and hopefully prevent catastrophes like that. So.
First at 11, a large
You
manufacturer.
already want the other radio. In Charleston, West Virginia, just another, this is a Jaguar. So, you know, the theme kind of continues here. It's not one brand, it's not one situation, it's not one particular hazard that's causing it. This one happened while it was sitting on the showroom floor being charged. So, luckily they were able to see the smoke coming out and were able to get it out of the building before it actually started on fire. So. This is very interesting for firefighters to keep in mind, you know, more so than probably the industrial type customers is, you know, they're showing up on this situation and they see smoke, you immediately think fire. Well, you know, the batteries put off a different kind of smoke. It hangs low to the ground. It's kind of, not a lot of exposures happened yet because these things are so new, so departments are learning all about it. So this was an electric Jeep that the fire department showed up, it had something going on, it was smoking in the garage, and happened to be the gas that was, the battery was off gassing. So much like that soft-sided bag we saw that exploded earlier, this is just a full-size version of it except in someone's house. So we'll play the video here and keep an eye out. There'll be a spot in here where the garage door flies off and hits a fireman right in the back of the head. So keep an eye on that, and thankfully he had his helmet on. So.
Explosion in Erie, Colorado, and thankfully nobody got injured. Now, as firefighters, we know that vehicles don't typically explode. That's something kind of made up by Hollywood that makes things a little bit more exciting. Now, occasionally we do get that one vehicle blowing up, lots of fire, very exciting, but it's very rare. However, in this case, an electric vehicle caused an explosion in a garage. But how and what happened? Now, in early 2023, Mountain View Fire Rescue responded to reports of a structure fire. They arrive on scene, they make entry into the house, and they've got smoke throughout the house. As they're doing their search, they work their way into the garage, a smaller garage off the side of the house. And what they find is a Jeep hybrid vehicle that has a little bit of fire in the back seat. Well, the crew of three, they opened the nozzle, they started putting out the fire like any crew would do, and there was an explosion.
Here's where
the garage door blew off the tracks, flying 30 feet through the air, nearly taking the head off this captain here, knocks his helmet to the ground. Very fortunate incident that nobody was injured in that explosion, the crew inside or the captain outside in the driveway. But this is a real possibility, and this is something UL Fire Safety and Research has already tested.
So essentially what's happening is that battery is off-gassing, is it's creating a hydrogen bomb. And once that gas reaches a higher volume than the oxygen level inside of the room, it just takes anything to spark that and trigger it. So likely what it was there is they were trying to mess with the garage door and something probably off-gassed, or I'm sorry, sparked and created that, explosion.
How did an electric vehicle cause an explosion?
So moving into some of the safety issues with the batteries, like I said before, that last video or a couple videos ago with the the DeWalt and the Milwaukee batteries that everyone he assumed were UL certified, they had all the labeling and all that stuff, but they weren't purchased through a dealer. So you always want to use this UL certified batteries and chargers. Never mix and match batteries and chargers, and make sure that if you don't need the battery to be fully charged, try to keep them under 50% because you want to think of it kind of like a gas can, right? If you have 5 gallons of gas, it's going to make a bigger explosion than 1 gallon of gas, and it's kind of the same in the battery. So you can see up in the corner a charger that I found online of somebody that cobbled together a USB charger and stuck it to the ends of the battery. So these are the kind of things that the fire service is up against, because someone on YouTube thinks that that's a good way to make a charger. And the storage of batteries, so that kind of moves into the safety part of it too. Never leave them on a charger for an extended period of time. You never want to block an exit with a charging battery, like I was talking about earlier with the egress situation, and you saw the scooter catching on fire and the bike cover. That kind of things, if you block the exit, obviously, it's like a hot box. So Other important thing is to maintain the state of charge under 50% for long-term storage. So if you have e-bikes at a second home or somewhere like that, make sure that they're not all the way fully charged or left on the charger when you leave them. You always want to store the batteries in a cool, dry place. Avoid direct sunlight and try to, avoid extreme temperatures. I'm sure everyone's probably left their phone out in the sun too long and seen where the screen pops on that says, it's overheating. You must let it cool down before it works again. So the only thing that's keeping that phone from going into thermal runaway is the battery management system told it to shut off. So if you have a failure in that management system, you're creating a fireball on its own. So the disposal of lithium-ion batteries is, trash companies are having all kinds of issues with recycling and the fires that keep happening because people are throwing them in a regular trash can and then they're getting crushed in a smasher, and so all these transfer stations are having problems with it. But you should never dispose of them in a regular trash can. You should identify like retail drop-off points. This is a picture at a Home Depot that I took that had a recycling center right inside it. And there's also some mail service recycling places that if you're in an industrial setting and you have truckloads of lithium-ion batteries, you can work out a service that will come and pick those up for you. So some of the mitigation tools I'm going to get into now are our products and how we think that they can play into some of these scenarios that I just showed you, and some real world applications of it. So as you can see, we start with the car fire blanket. That was the original product that Li-Fire started with. We've done like I said earlier, multiple tests and multiple learns to refine the product and get it to where it is now. The next thing that we've really kind of started to push into is the e-bike covers, because there's so many people dying of it. We feel like it's a little bit of our service to protect these people if we can by simply covering this up with one of the e-bike covers. We also have forklift size covers for the industrial applications, so your warehouses, your factories, places like that. All of our products come inside of this gray PVC watertight bag, other than the e-bike cover, because it's just a little bit smaller and you wouldn't want to take it in and out of that all the time. So we do have wall mount cabinets available. We have a new design that's coming out here pretty soon that actually will hang on the wall, and then it'll have wheels on the back of it, so you can pick it up off the wall and be able to wheel it wherever it needs to go, because some of these larger blankets do weigh about 60 pounds. So the future trends for EV safety, I think there's some new technology coming out in the battery world that it's already out. The problem is all of these companies have put a lot of money in the current technology, the current factories, the current processes, so it's going to have to kind of run its manufacturing cycle of 3 to 5 to 7 years before that stuff starts to transition into our everyday life again. So we're going to have about a 10-year window where this is going to continue to be a pretty significant problem. The batteries do offer a more sustainable option compared to traditional lithium-ion batteries, so the solid-state technology does address some of the issues because you don't have the combustible electrolytes and some of those things. So I think that's where we see the industry sort of trending to, because batteries aren't going away. I mean, just standing here looking around this room, I'm sure there's a dozen or more lithium-ion batteries, within eye distance. So the future trends are looking pretty promising. So kind of hit on that just a second ago, the vital role. They're essential to modern technology. They're everywhere, from your drones to your healthcare to agriculture now to computers to your phone. There's really no way that you can go through a modern life without a lithium-ion battery. So I think the goal right now is just to kind of increase the risk awareness of the e-bike fires and things like that. I know when I dropped that stat of 18 people that were killed in New York City last year, most people just stop in their tracks because they're just not aware. So I think it's our goal as we build this company and to push things forward is we just need to be the information provider and let people kind of make the decision. Mitigation strategies also need to be implemented from municipalities, right, where they need to come in and write some code enforcement in some of these condos and multifamily apartment buildings where it's not just your life that you're risking or impacting by having one of these things charging, in your bedroom. And we also see the regulatory updates coming from the insurance. We have a pretty good relationship in some of the yachting world, and they've had several hundreds of millions of dollars of assets be caught on fire and sunk to the bottom of the ocean in the last few years. So there's going to be rules and regulations coming very quickly to ensure that these people can continue insurance coverage. So one of the things we really wanted to hit on today, and I'll kind of go over it real briefly here, and then Matt can kind of dive into it a little bit more, is we're launching an EV fire safety course. It's only going to be for our distributors, our salespeople, and our potential customers. And it's going to be web-based, so you guys can log in, you can go through the different modules, get the certification, get the training so that you're comfortable with the product, you can answer the questions. And then by doing that, we're going to enter a sales contest through the rest of this year. And we'll have some details of that will follow up in the packet that we send out that kind of goes through all this. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt for a little while here, and he's going to kind of run through this safety course and the monthly webinars and how that'll work moving forward. So thank you all for your time.
All right, hey everybody. I'm gonna actually do a screen share, so you won't see me on camera, but basically we'll go through the EV fire safety course and the certificate, and we'll go through where you can find some of the content. So I'll turn this camera off, switch over. All right, so in the email packet and in this deck, you'll see you're able to sign up for this lithium-ion fire safety course. There's a code where you can access it for free. And there are several learning modules when you come in here, and you're able to take a look at some of the lessons that Bryce and I and some of our employees have put together. And basically all you need to do is just go through the course, and there's some questions and quizzes after each section. They're pretty basic and standard. They're really geared towards lithium-ion safety and Li-Fire products. At the end, you'll see there's a quick little final exam, and then you're actually able to get a certificate that you can attach to LinkedIn. The link for the course is on the deck, and there will be an email going out to everybody that joined the webinar today and for all our distributors with all this information and a screen recording of me going through it. But the course is really catered towards a holistic approach to lithium-ion safety, starting with introduction to lithium-ion batteries in the EV industry, going into exploring lithium-ion batteries and kind of how thermal runaway works. The next part is the risks of lithium-ion batteries, which hits on thermal runaway and also some of the issues and problems we're seeing in the common day with the increased adoption of EVs, whether that's vehicles, forklifts, e-bikes, and anything alike. Next, it goes into the key features and products of benefits of Li-Fire's products and how to use them. And then lastly, it talks about just the different market segments, whether you're a distributor or a fire safety chief or lead, and how you can kind of, on a high level, empower your organization, whether that be to sell or to actually use the blankets and covers and products for your safety. So that's pretty much it for the course. Again, we'll send an email out to all the invitees and recipients of the meeting in regards to this course. And I will turn it over to Brycen, back over to Brycen for any Q&A if anyone has any questions.
Samples that we'll send out to you after you pass the course so that you know the product in and out, but you also have something you can carry around because it's not really convenient to take the 70-pound blanket and throw it out and put it on the counter and explain the whole process. So take your fancy dancy little toy car here and you can throw it over on the chief's desk and explain how things work and kind of go through our little training video. I'm not sure if you guys watched the movie Tommy Boy back in the day, but you can kind of pull one of those stunts too and do the little fire crash scene of the car. So I'd just like to open it up for any questions right now. Any comments, anything you guys are having issues with as far as sales or objections or things that we could do better, we'd love to hear from you.
Bryce, this is Andre from Canada.
Yes, sir.
Tell me more about your box and how did you come to develop that? I guess there's a demand for that for parking lots.
Yeah, you mean the storage container?
Right?
Yeah, so now that we're working pretty close with Toyota and they're starting to figure out how to outfit the entire facility, which is let's see, it's like 67 football fields underneath the roof at their facility in Indiana. So these blankets weighing 60 pounds. As we're kind of walking through there, I got the idea of instead of having to throw that thing on your back and carry it where it's going, this cabinet will hang on the wall and then be set down with the wheels, and you can get it to where you need to go and then deploy it much more quickly. So it's kind of been born out of the necessity for more of an industrial customer. The fire department really likes the soft side bag because it stores much easier. They don't have to take up a bunch of room in their truck, and they can pack it in a corner. Kind of it's a little bit malleable. So that's how the idea came up. Anyone else have questions? Thanks, Andre, for that. I appreciate it.
I just have a quick question about the blankets. What size do the blankets come in?
So our standard size goes all the way up to a 20 by 30. We can make them, custom. I've made some for Mercedes-Benz that's been, I think they were like 30 by 40 or something like that because they needed to cover the Sprinter vans with them. So our standard sizes though are the 20 by 30, the 23 by 23, 21 by 21, and a 16 by 16. And that kind of covers the whole space from forklifts through consumer to the industrial use, and of course.
Thank you, thank you. Could you also tell me the temperature resistance of your blankets?
Yeah, so we have two different levels of blankets, right? So the standard one, I think it goes up to, this will come out in the packet, I think it's 2,200 degrees. And then the heavy duty one, which is, you know, it obviously weighs more too, it goes up to almost 3,000 degrees. So it's just a little bit different composition, a couple more, one more layer of the material. So it just kind of depends on your application. What we're seeing a lot with like you guys, for example, is in the factory areas, the heavy duty ones, because you're directly on the pack. So the temperature is much hotter than it is like in a car scenario where you're a firefighter, right? There's a lot of other things in the way. So, you know, the smaller ones like you guys need in manufacturing are also easier to move around. Because if you get into that 20 foot by 30 foot size in the heavy duty one, you're getting in there almost a little over 100 pounds. So it makes it very hard for more, it's going to take at least 3 people then to deploy it.
Right, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bryce, it's Anthony.
Hey, buddy.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you? You're the king of burning cars too. What are you up to now?
Burning cars?
Yeah. You got what? You got 10 under your belt now or something you said?
Probably close to that. Hey, these guys the other day, they didn't walk right in the middle of town, right in the park. That's good. Any question, I jumped to like you just said about the fire, you correct, that the blanket is around 2,000 degrees?
Yeah, I think 2,000, 2,200, something like that for the ones like you guys have now. And then we have a heavier duty one that goes up to like 3,000 or something like that.
I'm pretty sure our current brochures are 1,800 and some odd degrees. Do we need to get an updated brochure?
That could be, it could be, I think there's a range. I think 1,800 is the low side of it.
Okay.
I think. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure 1,800 is the low side and it goes up to like 2,200 or something like that. It's like the failure point, you know?
Yeah, we'll have to look at that and see. I know that maybe that is something we should have on the brochure because I believe it is only that one number, 1,800 and some odd degrees. So
Okay.
that's like that.
We do, like I said, we have a whole new set of things too. I need to get with you guys and see what documents we have, and you know, we have updated a bunch of things and changed a bunch of things. So we just need to see what versions you guys have of that.
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else have any questions?
No, but we have some write-in questions, Bryson, in the chat. Okay, look at the first one. So what do we recommend people to do post-fire after if we have to use EV fire blanket?
So you're going to kind of, as a fire department, it depends on the situation, right? If you have to use it, the fire department's going to pretty much have to show up. So they're going to monitor it with a thermal imaging camera and make sure that the temperatures are cooling off. There's a very serious chance that it's going to reignite because once one of those cells propagates, it's kind of a joint chain reaction to continue the cycle. So they can get it put out, and then it may come back a week later, a month later, 2 months later even. I think they had some out in Arizona, some semi-trucks. So post-fire, we recommend, making sure that the fire department's monitored with the thermal, wrapping it on the tow truck, and then the tow truck gets an escort to the wrecking yard, and then there it needs to be stored with the blanket over it, or it needs to be stored with a 50-foot perimeter all the way around it. Those are kind of the only two options, and then it just needs to be monitored. We had a bunch of incidents last year in Florida with the hurricane that hit the East Coast. All these flood-damaged electric cars ended up catching on fire 2 weeks later. They just had a whole field of them out there parked 50 feet apart, and every other day you'd have one catch on fire, one on fire, and it went on for almost a month. So it's very unpredictable after the fact.
All right. Another question is, how cost effective are your guys' blankets versus other competitors?
I think we don't really do a lot of studying of our competitors. We're kind of staying in our own lane. We're one of the only companies in the world that are solely focused on lithium-ion battery safety. You have a lot of other companies out there that are selling the products or selling a blanket, but they don't have the R&D and the science and the research behind it. So I think we're competitively priced. We're not, we're not the bottom of the barrel, but we're also not the most expensive. We think that we're right there where we need to be.
There's one more. Do the fire blankets extinguish the fire, or are they just used to suppress the fire?
Yeah, so there is no known way to put out a lithium-ion battery fire. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there right now that will tell you this works, that works, this works. Nothing works. So the goal for the blanket is to suppress the fire, give the fire department or the factory, whoever, time to either arrive or get away from it and be safe in maintaining the perimeter and preventing collateral damage. That's the biggest thing that the blanket can do, is to isolate it. So yeah, nothing can put out a lithium-ion battery fire. As you saw the video of the Tesla burning underwater, that kind of reiterates the point that no matter what you do, it's not going out. So that's kind of how that falls.
I don't see any more questions. And
Hey, Bryson, I'll chime in there for you real quick too. I learned really quick that, I know that's a great question, but I learned really quick that when you present these blankets, they are not to extinguish the fire. All they do is suppress and protect exposures.
That's right. Yep, 100%.
As long as you present it that way, you're good.
Yep, because we do have competitors, and I know it because I've had other guys tell me, well, your competitor says it puts it out. I said, well, we're not them. We've tested these. We know the science behind it. We know that when that reaction starts, the ion in lithium-ion is the oxygen, so it's creating its own oxygen. So all of your typical, fuel, spark, and oxygen for a regular fire, it blows people's minds because they can't comprehend how you can't take one away. So appreciate you chiming in there. Anyone else have any further questions before we close out here?
no, but I have one more in the chat, Bryson.
Okay.
How do we go about ordering custom sized blankets? Is there any minimum order quantity? It's from a distributor.
It depends on the sizes. If it's the smaller sizes, there's always going to be a minimum quantity, but it's going to depend on the size and the timeline and those kind of things. We do have a couple of the 3 foot by 3 foot, and I think 6 foot by 6 foot that Anthony got a hold of, but we really don't have a use for those that much because the batteries are so much bigger than that little blanket can handle. So it just kind of depends. But yeah, we're open to discussing any sort of custom order. I think one other thing I'll just hit on while I'm kind of just freewheeling here is, I get a lot of questions about whether it's reusable. So the reusability of it is yes. Anthony has one he's used 10 times. We had one that we used 5 or 6 times before it, got a rip and it failed. The issue is the contamination. Who's going to raise their hand and say that thing is clean? It can go in my firehouse now, and all the carcinogens are gone, so we can breathe it. Everything's okay. It's never going to happen. The NFPA has regulations against these things, so it's depending on the situation on whether you can reuse it. If you're a junkyard or a tow truck operator, yeah, you could probably reuse it. It's not going to be a problem. You're going to leave it laying in the corner somewhere, and it's not a big deal. So it's kind of a nuance to that question a little bit.
We have a public chat question. How much does a live demo cost, or is it free from Shafiq?
It just depends on the situation for the demos. We really don't go out and charge people for these. It's only usually for our distributors or a customer that's looking to place a pretty substantial order. We're not really in the training business of going out and doing live demos and those kind of things.
All right, I don't see any other questions. I think we're good.
All right.
But
Anyone else have any closing remarks? If not, we'll get off here and get your packets together and start to get this thing sent out. And if you have any follow-up questions, the email address to send these things are going to be on there, and we'd be happy to help you out. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.